tension is rising between China and Japan, putting pressure on an already strained relationship. Japan says Chinese government ships have entered waters near a group of islands claimed by both countries. Japan has summoned the Chinese ambassador in response. Ivan Watson is in Beijing with more. Ivan, how serious is this? What have you been able to find out?
Well, the Chinese government says that it rushed a number of additional Coast Guard ships, to a total of 8, to the waters off of these disputed islands after Japanese vessels were seen in the area. We've gotten reports of a flotilla of Japanese nationalists who were approaching these islands, which the Chinese call the Diaoyu Islands and the Japanese call the Senkaku Islands, and both governments lay claim to this archipelago of uninhabited islands. Meanwhile, the Japanese government has announced that it summoned China's ambassador to Tokyo to the foreign ministry to protest the arrival of the Chinese ships in these waters. It's not the first time that ships from both governments, that even planes from both governments have engaged in these types of cat and mouse games. In today's incident, the Japanese Coast Guard says that it radioed a warning to the Chinese ships to basically back off. And according to the Japanese Coast Guard, the Chinese response was, no, this is Chinese territory. This has been an area of friction in months past, and it has also resulted in very heated rhetoric from nationalists in both countries. We saw some very angry protests against Japan here in China last September after the Japanese government effectively purchased a number of these uninhabited islands. Aisha?
Ivan, for our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world, give us some context. You've already said that these islands are uninhabited. To help us understand why they're so important to these two countries.
Well, some of this goes back to the World War II and even further to wars between Japan and China, and anger and bitterness that lingers to this very day, bitterness that has been aggravated just in recent days as the #2 man in the Japanese government made another visit over the weekend to a controversial shrine to war dead in Japan, including war criminals from World War II. And the Chinese have grievances about the actions and war crimes that the Japanese military committed on Chinese territory during these bloody, terrible times. That has exacerbated anger on both sides, not only between the Japanese and the Chinese, but also with the South Koreans, who have their own anger against Japan as well. The South Korean foreign minister actually canceled a trip to Japan because of this controversial visit to this Yasukuni shrine. So there's a lot of history going back, and some of the perceived nationalist moves that the Japanese government has made in recent months and just in recent days has resulted in a reaction from the Chinese government, where we now actually have not warships, but Coast Guard ships issuing warnings to each other in disputed waters, and that is something that could lead to tensions and unpredictable actions when you've got these kind of vessels in close proximity to each other.
Yeah, indeed, that is a concern, that this has the potential to become a broader clash. Ivan Watson following this for us there in Beijing. Ivan, always appreciate it. Thank you.